Chapter 241. In just a few days, the news that the new Saint of Light, Hathaway, was deeply loved by the God of Light had spread throughout the entire Ouchi continent. Hathaway, the Emperor of the Deep Blue Empire, recently sent a secret letter asking for help. He said that their northern territory has been invaded by the demon race. It just so happens that you will be representing the Holy Church to visit the entire Ouchi continent. Why don't you go to the Deep Blue Empire first? Demon race? The demon race had been exiled by the god to the land of calamity opposite the Ouchi continent 10,000 years ago. They were separated by the abyss of death. How could they cross the abyss to reach the Ouchi continent? Gu Xingyin had no reason to refuse. 2 days later, she prepared to leave. When the Saint of Light went out, her entourage was naturally luxurious. Not only did the Holy Church send over 100 priests to follow her, but they also sent an entire Knights of Light to protect the Saint of Light. Accompanying the Saint of Light were 2 cardinals and several bishops. Even the Pope's entourage couldn't compare. Heidi walked in and whispered to Gu Xingyin, "Lady Saint, the commander of the Knights of Light, Sir Carlos, wishes to see you." Gu Xingyin noticed that her face was a bit red. "Let him in," Gu Xingyin said. When Carlos came in, Gu Xingyin knew why Heidi's face was so red. This commander of the Knights of Light was not only young, but also a rare handsome man. He had a head full of bright golden hair and deep blue eyes that were more mysterious than the sea. When he smiled, it was as if the entire hall was infected by him and became brighter. The Holy Church had 3 major knight regiments, the Knights of Light, the Holy Knights, and the Honorable Knights. Any one of the 3 knight regiments was at least a legend swordmaster. And to be the commander of the 3 knight regiments, one had to be at least a sword saint. Sword saints were already at the peak of the Ouchi continent's power. It was no wonder that Heidi was moved by such a handsome and powerful knight. "Good day, Saintess." Carlos entered and saluted Gu Xingyin with a knight's salute. "Good day, Sir Carlos." Gu Xingyin nodded at him. "The Knights of Light are ready." Gu Xingyin nodded. "I'm ready." The fact that the Holy Maiden of the Radiant Church was traveling in such a grand fashion was naturally known throughout the continent. Everywhere they went, there would be countless people begging to see the Saintess. However, Carlos blocked most of them. "Saintess, please don't blame me for acting on my own." Carlos came to Gu Xingyin to ask for forgiveness after the convoy stopped to rest. "Your Excellency Carlos has done well. Among these people, there are only a few who have firm beliefs." Hearing this, Carlos smiled in his heart. This Saintess was indeed as strong as the legends said. Her faith in the God of Light was extremely firm. There was almost no delay along the way as they arrived at the Deep Blue Empire. The Deep Blue Empire received the news a few days ago. His Majesty the Emperor brought all the royal family members to the city gate to welcome Gu Xingyin's arrival. God of Light. With Lady Saintess and everyone here, the crisis of my Deep Blue Empire will definitely be resolved. The Emperor of the Deep Blue Empire said emotionally. Host, when this person spoke, he didn't have any emotional fluctuations. The system reminded. Gu Xingyin glanced at the Emperor. Then he was acting. She didn't know what the Emperor had prepared for them to come to the Deep Blue Empire. He was waiting for her. Lady Saintess, the Deep Blue Empire is holding a welcome banquet for you. Heidi walked in. Her hostility towards Gu Xingyin had decreased by a lot. The reason was simple, Saintesses couldn't marry and couldn't like anyone. As the Saintess maid, she didn't have this restriction. Looking at Carlos, she was glad that she wasn't chosen at that time. Chapter 242. The main character of the banquet was undoubtedly Gu Xingyin. Apart from her, the other cardinals were also the focus of attention. On the other hand, the attention of the noble ladies was completely focused on the handsome knights. Especially Carlos, who was handsome, charming, elegant, and powerful. Naturally, he was the most popular existence. Unfortunately, To the disappointment of all the ladies, Sir Carlos turned a blind eye to all the ambiguous expressions of goodwill. The focus of the entire banquet was always on Gu Xingyin. If not for the fact that the Saint of Light was destined to be unable to marry, these noble ladies would have thought that there was an unspeakable relationship between the two. Your Excellency Saintess, these places are the important areas of the Deep Blue Empire that have been invaded by the demon race. After the banquet, the Emperor of the Deep Blue Empire began to talk business with Gu Xingyin. Gu Xingyin took a look. Sure enough, it was the two northernmost cities of the Deep Blue Empire. The information provided by the Emperor was not false. The situation was exactly the same as what the Holy See had secretly investigated. I will set off for the Icefield City tomorrow. These demons who have betrayed the Light God will receive the most severe punishment. Gu Xingyin's voice revealed a murderous intent. Then, thank you, Your Excellency Saintess. The Emperor of the Deep Blue Empire had a grateful expression. On the way back, Gu Xingyin secretly thought, the Emperor of the Deep Blue Empire's purpose could not be so simple. However, since she had been baptized by divine power, her magic power had reached the level of a warlock saint. Moreover, she had a powerhouse like Carlos and two cardinals by her side. Even if she encountered a dangerous situation, there would be no problem for her to escape unscathed. Then, since that was the case, why not go to the Icefield City as he wished? What's more, this trip, whether she was willing or not, she had to go. The convoy only stayed in the imperial capital of the Deep Blue Empire for a day before setting off for the Icefield City. The Emperor of the Deep Blue Empire smiled as he watched the convoy leave. His eyes were filled with emotions that no one could understand. Carlos seemed to have felt something and looked back from afar. He did not say anything and continued to be his most loyal knight, guarding the Saintess. Icefield City. When Gu Xingyin got out of the car, even though she was mentally prepared, she was still shocked by the scene in front of her. The entire city was shrouded in a black mist. Gu Xingyin, who was born with the radiant body, was especially sensitive to the power of darkness. Almost instantly, she sensed the dense aura of the demon clan. The city was in a state of desolation. There was no one on either side of the road, and the doors of every house were tightly shut. There was no trace of life. Someone seemed to have seen them from afar and walked over to greet them. The one who spoke was a middle-aged man with a thin face. He was wearing a robe that was neither new nor old. When he saw Gu Xingyin, he was overjoyed. The city lord of Icefield City, Kerman, welcomes the Saintess. Gu Xingyin looked behind him. There were only a few people. She raised her eyebrows but did not say anything. Instead, she asked another question. How's the situation in your Icefield City? City Lord Kerman smiled bitterly. The demon clan attacks almost every 3 to 5 days. Almost 90% of the soldiers in our Icefield City have died in battle. Now, there are only some old, weak, sick, and disabled left in the city. Moreover, due to the invasion of the demon Qi, the people in the city often fall ill and their physiques are weak. Now, the Icefield City is almost waiting for death. Chapter 243. Before Koman could finish his words, an ear-piercing alarm sounded. His complexion changed as he exclaimed, "Oh no, there's another demon invasion." Gu Xingyin's expression turned solemn. The moment before Carlos gave the order, she raised the scepter in her hand high. A dazzling white light rose from the tip of her scepter and gradually spread throughout the entire Icefield City. The Great Purification Spell. The eyes of the two red-robed bishops lit up as they looked at Gu Xingyin in shock. The Great Purification Spell was one of the most powerful forbidden spells of light magic. Only saints could cast it. The two red-robed bishops could also cast this spell, but they could not cover the entire Icefield City like Gu Xingyin. Didn't this mean that the Holy Maiden, at such a young age, had already surpassed the two of them who had been immersed in light magic for hundreds of years? The two of them looked at each other, their expressions filled with shock and surprise. In any case, as the holy maiden of the holy sea, Gu Xingyin's strength was a good thing for the holy sea. Screams rang out one after another. Gu Xingyin knew that this was the final struggle of the demons. Great Purification was the most tyrannical forbidden spell of all light magic. Great Purification, as the name implied, was that all dark, impure, and things rejected by light would be dissolved in the light of the Great Purification spell. Koman looked at the black fog that had covered the entire ice-filled city for several months disappearing in the white light. The sky of the ice-filled city finally returned to its previous clear state. He almost burst into tears. "Thank you, Holy Maiden." He bowed deeply to Gu Xingyin. The followers behind him also followed suit and bowed to Gu Xingyin. "You're welcome. It's my duty to kill the demons and destroy the darkness," Gu Xingyin said with a smile. At this time, Carlos suddenly spoke, "I wonder if Mayor Koman has prepared a place for us to rest." "Holy Maiden, you've traveled a long way. It's better for you to rest." Mayor Koman nodded repeatedly, "It's already prepared. It's my fault." He quickly led Gu Xingyin and the others to the prepared accommodation. Carlos stood beside Gu Xingyin. Gu Xingyin looked at him gratefully. After the people of Koman left, Gu Xingyin breathed a sigh of relief. She sat down and smiled at Carlos, "Thank you." Carlos looked serious, "Holy Maiden, there's no need to show off. It's just a few low-level demons. The Knights of Light can deal with them." Gu Xingyin shook his head. "You should be able to tell that the people of Koman City are all frightened. If I can't convince them with my strength, I'm afraid it will be difficult to win their trust." Carlos said stiffly, "Even so, you shouldn't risk your body. I was ordered to protect you, so I have the responsibility to ensure your safety." Gu Xingyin looked tired, "I'm just a little exhausted." "All right, Carlos, you can leave first. Let me rest for a while." Carlos seemed to want to say something, but when he saw Gu Xingyin's pale face, he swallowed his words and went out quietly. "The system said, that human cares a lot about you. Your attitude is so cold." Gu Xingyin closed her eyes, "It's because he cares too much about me that I have to do this." Since there was no result, she would kill him before he sprouted. Chapter 244. "Sir Carlos, this is the Qianlin fruit I just got. Would you like to try it?" Heidi saw Carlos standing alone at the door and asked with a blushing face. Carlos shook his head and said, "I don't need to thank you. The Saintess used a lot of magic power earlier. Go and see if she needs it." Heidi's face turned pale, and she whispered yes. Her hands clenched tightly around the tray. Again. She had been glad that she was not the Saintess, so she had the opportunity to get in touch with the person she liked. But what about Carlos? His gaze had always been on Saintess Hathaway, and he had never looked at anyone else. If she was the Saintess at that time, would Carlos only have her in his heart and in his eyes, just like now? Gu Xingyin inexplicably received a system prompt that Heidi's dislike of her had increased. She was a little irritated. When the matter in Icefield City is settled, I will get rid of Heidi. At the moment, she was meditating to restore the magic power in her body. With her current level, it was actually very stressful for her to cast such a large-scale great purification. She had just used a trick. The scepter given to her by the God of Light was not only beautiful, but also rich in the power of light. It could be used as a cheating device at a critical moment. However, even with the enhancement of the scepter, the mana in her body was almost depleted by the terrifying output of the Great Purification spell. Carlos had also noticed this, which was why he had asked the Castellan to bring them here for a rest. Gu Xingyin, who closed her eyes, did not notice that when she was meditating, the scepter on the side flashed with a faint golden light. The power of light flowed from the scepter into her body, replenishing her magic power. So when Gu Xingyin opened her eyes and found that her body had recovered to its peak state, she was shocked. The system faintly added, "The scepter given to you by the God of Light." Gu Xingyin, so that's how it is. It is worthy of being a product of the gods. It is simply a must-have. At night, when Gu Xingyin appeared in the city lord's mansion, as expected, it was already filled with people. Those who had closed their doors during the day had now tidied themselves up and came to pay a visit to the saintess who had single-handedly dispelled the haze that had shrouded the ice-filled city for months. The moment they saw Gu Xingyin come out, many of them knelt down spontaneously. Lord Komen explained awkwardly, "Saintess, it's not that they don't want to come out during the day. It's just that our people are really scared." Gu Xingyin interrupted him, "I know. City Lord Kerman, please don't mind, I understand." She looked around the big square of the city lord's mansion, and her voice, which contained the power of light, faintly resounded over the ice-filled city. "The god of light will not give up on any of his people. I came here under the will of the god to destroy the invading demons. Where the light shines, the haze should not exist." Her voice was full of the power of faith. The people of the ice-filled city seemed to be infected by her words and shouted together with her, "Where the light shines, the haze should not exist. Where the light shines, the haze should not exist." Carlos looked at the woman standing in front of the crowd with a determined expression, and a thought that he had never had before welled up in his mind. Chapter 245. "Milady Holy Maiden, we didn't discover anything out of the ordinary," Carlos said to Gu Xingyin. Hearing this, Gu Xingyin frowned. This shouldn't be the case. At this time, she was investigating the outskirts of Icefield City with Carlos and a small team of Knights of Light. Because the matter was rather secretive, Gu Xingyin didn't bring many people with her. But the result of the investigation was abnormal. In the entire outskirts of Icefield City, they couldn't find a single trace of the demons. Because Gu Xingyin had used the Great Purification technique, the aura of the demons had been completely removed. The current situation meant that after that, no more demons had come to Icefield City. Gu Xingyin wasn't so naive as to believe that the only demons harassing the Deep Blue Empire were the ones she had destroyed. She was certain that the demons had some way to conceal their tracks. Perhaps, they just wanted to temporarily avoid the limelight of the Holy Church. This time, the investigation came to an end without any results. The group returned to Icefield City. "Carlos," Gu Xingyin said to Carlos. 2 days later, because the demons had been wiped out, the Radiant Church's army left Icefield City, heading to another city that had been harassed by the demons, Icefield City. But contrary to everyone's expectations, on the third day after the Radiant Church's army left, Icefield City was once again attacked by the demons. The power of darkness once again enveloped the entire city. "Follow them." In the darkness, 2 pairs of eyes coldly stared at the black-haired demons. These 2 people were Gu Xingyin and Carlos. The Radiant Church's departure from Icefield City was just a pretense. In fact, Gu Xingyin had long expected that the demons wouldn't give up just like that. So, she simply beat them at their own game and pretended to leave this place. She and Carlos were secretly guarding this place, waiting for the demons to arrive. Gu Xingyin watched as the demons arrived at a deserted house in the northeast corner of Icefield City. The few demons vigilantly glanced around, then began to chant an obscure incantation. Gradually, following their voices, a dark red light lit up in the empty space between them, gradually forming a door of light the size of an adult. Without hesitation, the few devils stepped into the light gate and disappeared from the room. Gu Xingyin and Carlos looked at each other. This was clearly a special teleportation formation. Seeing that the dark red wooden door was about to disappear, Gu Xingyin stepped in without hesitation. Carlos watched the slender figure disappear and followed her in. Beep! Gu Xingyin was startled by the system's voice. Destroy the demon's conspiracy and stop Diablo from reviving. There's such a setting for random missions? The system explains seriously, under normal circumstances, random quests will not appear. Don't worry, although this mission seems difficult, the system has checked the data and found that the completion rate of the mission is 100%. The difficulty of the mission is low. Gu Xingyin was speechless. If the system had not always been reliable, she would have suspected that it was lying to her. Stop Diablo from reviving. Such a difficult and dangerous mission was actually low in difficulty and had a 100% completion rate. Could it be that Diablo was already dead and had no chance of being resurrected? Gu Xingyin complained as she found that she had been teleported to a strange place. Chapter 246. The air here was damp and gloomy. The sky here was always overcast, and no light could be seen. The feeling this place gave off was cold, gloomy, and hopeless. The power of darkness that assaulted them made Gu Xingyin feel as if she couldn't breathe. She was born with the body of light, so she had a natural aversion to this place. The Land of Doom. Gu Xingyin quickly understood what this place was based on the memories in his mind. This was exactly the same as the Land of Calamity that God had used to banish the demons. Carlos, who had followed closely behind, had an unsightly expression. Clearly, he had also realized what this place was. The two of them realized the severity of the situation. The demons actually already had a teleportation formation to leave the Land of Calamity. Didn't this mean that the shackles of the endless abyss no longer existed for the demons? As long as the demons were willing, they could come to the Ouchi continent at any time. In other words, the citizens of the Ouchi continent were in danger of being attacked by the demons at any time. Two honored guests, welcome to the Land of Calamity. A feminine voice sounded in this land. Gu Xingyin raised her head. A demon with long dark purple hair appeared in front of the two of them. A high-ranked demon. Gu Xingyin looked at this handsome demon with two horns on his head. The demon race was divided into ranks. The higher the rank of the demon race, the more handsome they would be. Moreover, the distinctive feature of a high-level demon race was that they would grow a pair of demon horns on their heads, which meant that their bloodline and strength were very powerful. The Holy Maiden of the Light Church, commander of the Knights of Light. The high-grade fiend smiled faintly. The innate charm of the demon race filled his face with a unique androgynous charm. Gu Xingyin's heart trembled. He had discovered their existence so quickly, and even called out their names so clearly. It was very likely that they had been discovered as soon as they arrived. Her expression turned cold. The demons have been banished to the Land of Calamity, and will never be able to enter the Ouchi continent. This is God's will. Are you demons trying to go against God's will? God? The demon sneered. In the eyes of the God of Light, there are only his believers. He only detests us demons. He is not a god of our demon race. He looked at Gu Xingyin and Carlos with bloodthirsty eyes. Just nice. A holy maiden of the luminous church and a commander of the Knights of Light. I'll capture you and use you as sacrifices for my God to return to the human world. As his voice fell, countless demons rushed out from the darkness and attacked the two of them. Carlos unsheathed his sword immediately. Saintess, stand behind me. Gu Xingyin raised her scepter. I am not a woman who can only hide behind others in times of danger. Carlos was stunned for a moment before he smiled and said, all right, Carlos is fortunate to be able to fight alongside the Holy Maiden. The power of light that was incompatible with the Land of Calamity surged out, burning and corroding those low-level demons, and turning them into ashes in the worst case. It looked like the two of them were crushing the demons, but in reality, Gu Xingyin knew that the situation was not good. There was an endless stream of demons in the Land of Calamity, but she and Carlos had no way of absorbing the power of light to replenish themselves. If this continued, the two of them would die sooner or later. Gu Xingyin couldn't help but complain, System, didn't you say that the difficulty of the mission was very easy and that the completion rate was 100%? Chapter 247. The system said, the difficulty of this mission is indeed simple. Gu Xingyin's body flickered, and a holy light technique flew over, burning a demon that attacked from behind into ashes. The system was speechless. It silently took back its words, and hid in a corner, pretending to be dead. Gu Xingyin thought. After knowing you for so long, you're actually this kind of system. The land of Cataclysm was the main camp of the demons, and the two could only feel more and more demons swarming over. This could not go on. The two looked at each other, and retreated as they fought. Unfortunately, the land of Cataclysm was an oracle from the god of light, and was used to banish the demons, using the endless abyss to separate it from the Ouchi continent. They did not know what method the demons used to cross the endless abyss to teleport to the Ouchi continent, but Gu Xingyin and Carlos could not return to the Ouchi continent at this time. 2 days later. Gu Xingyin was close to exhaustion. Carlos's expression was still calm, and there was no sign of exhaustion, but Gu Xingyin knew that his situation was not much better than hers. In front of them was an endless demon army, and behind them was a bottomless endless abyss, like a man-eating monster. The high-level demon looked at the two of them with a smile, as if he was looking at two rabbits that had fallen into his net. Gu Xingyin knew that the demon was toying with them. From beginning to end, not a single high-level demon made a move, and the low-level demons used their lives to force the two of them into a desperate situation. Gu Xingyin did not know how many demons had died at her hands in these 2 days. The two of you, since things have come to this, follow me obediently. Speaking of which, you are lucky to be able to witness the resurrection of our great God with your own eyes. The demon was not at all worried that the two of them would resist. There was no light energy in the land of Cataclysm, and the two of them had no way to replenish their energy. Resurrect the god of destruction. Gu Xingyin laughed coldly. The god of light is omnipotent, and your goal will never be realized. Carlos looked at Gu Xingyin with a complicated expression, as if he did not expect her to still have such firm faith in the god of light at this time. Omnipotent? The demon sneered. If your god is truly omnipotent, then why are you in such a predicament now? Gu Xingyin seemed to be disdainful of him. Don't try to shake my faith with these useless words. She glanced at Carlos and suddenly said, my scepter still has some power of light left. I will try to use it to tear the space here later. Take this opportunity to leave. If you can return to the Ouchi continent, you must tell the Holy See about the demon's scheme. If, then let's leave everything to fate. Carlos's expression changed. What about you? Gu Xingyin smiled but did not speak. The scepter in her hand blazed with light, and the rich light energy made the approaching demons retreat. Is this divine power? The high-grade devilish being's expression changed. The incomparably powerful light divine power brazenly tore a crack in the space of the land of doom. Let's go. Gu Xingyin urged. Carlos did not move, and only looked at her deeply. If I leave, what will you do? Gu Xingyin, in my current state, I definitely won't be able to withstand the spatial crack. Don't worry, I have the ability to protect myself. Carlos did not believe her words at all. The two of them had been forced to this point. If she really had the ability to protect herself, would she have waited until now to reveal it? Chapter 248. Actually, Gu Xingyin wasn't lying to him. She had the system and the main character's luck, so it wasn't easy for her to die. However, Carlos didn't know this at all. He only thought that Gu Xingyin wanted him to leave while he was prepared to die. Gu Xingyin saw that Carlos was about to dawdle again. Her power of light was about to be used up, so she couldn't help but feel anxious. If she continued like this, the demons would kill her. She steeled her heart and directly jumped into the endless abyss behind her. Hurry up and leave. Don't make me jump for nothing. Carlos's eyes were about to pop out of their sockets. She really jumped down without any hesitation. With a thought, an imperceptible golden light fell into the endless abyss. Carlos ignored the spatial crack that was about to close beside him. He looked at the countless demons in front of him with an expressionless face. The high-level demon was still sighing. As expected of the saintess. It's a pity that the leader doesn't seem to appreciate it. Before he could finish speaking, cold sweat flowed down his face. The man in front of him didn't know when, but his blue eyes had turned completely golden. All the demons in the land of entrapment felt an endless amount of pressure. The low-level demons couldn't resist anymore and all knelt on the ground. The high-level demon was still holding on, but when Carlos glanced at him, he couldn't hold on anymore and fell to the ground. "You want to revive Philosophy?" A low voice came from Carlos's mouth. The purple-haired demon was already trembling. He didn't dare to answer. How naive. "Do you think that you can fight against me just because you revive him?" Carlos didn't need him to answer. He was talking to himself. "Originally, for the balance between light and dark, I had already given you a way out. I couldn't be bothered with your little tricks. However, you shouldn't have." He didn't continue speaking. Instead, he looked at the endless abyss with a gentle expression. "Since you've been causing trouble for so many years, I don't think there's a need to let you run around in the dark." He gently raised his hand, and an incomparably beautiful light slowly condensed in his hand. The terrifying power caused the space here to continuously collapse. The purple-haired devilish being finally couldn't help but yell, "You forced us to do this. The God of Light. As the ruler of this continent, you are known to shine in every corner. But what about us? Have we, the devil race, ever enjoyed the slightest bit of kindness from you?" The God of Light looked down at him. "From the moment you were born, you were destined to oppose the light. Do you dare to accept my gift?" The purple-haired demon was speechless. Not only was the light god's gift not a favor to the demon race, but it was also the sound of death. 10,000 years ago, when the war between the light and the dark ended and Philosophy died, it was destined that there would be no more demons on this continent. The God of Light turned around and ignored the demons behind him. A golden beam of light that could break through the darkness of the land of doom for tens of thousands of years broke through the sky, burning all the darkness and evil into ashes. Endless soft halos of light sprinkled down from the sky, revealing the endless abyss that had never seen light before. A speck of golden light floated slightly. If one walked closer to take a look, they would discover that it was a barrier of light, and a figure was sleeping inside. The God of Light quietly stared at the peaceful Gu Xingyin. After a long time, he bent down and picked her up. Chapter 249. Gu Xingyin woke up to a strange fragrance. She opened her eyes and saw a beautiful scene that she had never seen before. Countless flowers that she could not name were blooming passionately, and the fragrance came from them. But this was not what surprised her. Those people, with wings dancing gracefully in the air, sitting elegantly on a harp, were her eyes playing tricks on her? She blinked and called out to the system. "Host, there is no need to doubt. You are now in the heavenly realm of this world." The system replied. Heavenly realm? Hathaway's memory came online. Wasn't this the legendary place where the gods lived? Then those. Gu Xingyin looked at those people with snow-white wings. Were they really angels? Did she fail her mission and come to the heavenly realm after dying in the endless abyss? Gu Xingyin started to worry if she had failed her mission. Before the system could speak, it sensed something and shut its mouth. The God of Light looked at his believer sitting there in shock, obviously not understanding the situation in front of him. He waved his hand to dismiss the curious angels and walked to the side of Gu Xingyin, who was still in a daze. Gu Xingyin sensed the person's aura and looked over subconsciously. Then, she was stunned. She had never seen such a good-looking person. No, it should be God. Even if Gu Xingyin had never seen the true face of the God of Light before, at this moment, she could confirm with one look that this strange man was the God of Light. The power of faith that the system gathered for her showed its effect. Almost at the same time that she recognized the God of Light, Gu Xingyin became excited. She opened her mouth slightly, and her delicate little face was full of confusion. She stared at the man in front of her, as if she could not believe that she was lucky enough to see God. For a moment, she even forgot to bow. Fortunately, the god of light did not pursue her improper behavior. In fact, he was in a good mood to see his usually gentle and calm believer staring at him in a daze. This was also a kind of affirmation of her charm, wasn't it? The chuckle from the god of light brought Gu Xingyin back to her senses. Her face flushed red as she hurriedly got up to apologize. The god of light extended a hand to support her. No need to be so courteous. A familiar lotus fragrance lingered around Gu Xingyin's body. She was a little stunned. The lover of this life was actually a god. Shocked once again, Gu Xingyin followed the god of light's instructions and sat back down. The god of light laughed as he looked at the silly look on his follower's face. He looked extremely obedient, and there was no trace of the vigor he had when he sacrificed himself to save his companions in the land of woe. Thinking of this, the god of light became unhappy again. Although Carlos was just one of his incarnations, the god of light was still upset at the thought of her dying to save him. A noble god would never admit to being jealous of himself. Gu Xingyin finally digested the fact that her lover was her boss. She looked at the god of light again, and her mood became inexplicably better. With such a cheat in hand, in this world, what mission would she have to worry about not being able to complete? No wonder the system said those words before. The god of light saw her sneaking a glance at him, and then she sat there alone, pursing her lips and smiling. Her little face was flushed red. His mood also became better. Chapter 250. God. Gu Xingyin suddenly thought of something and her expression changed. I had a companion who went to the land of calamity with me. How is he now? The space-time crack was extremely unstable. She didn't know how Carlos was doing. The god of light hesitated. Gu Xingyin's expression suddenly became nervous. The god of light originally wanted to tease her, but seeing Gu Xingyin's slightly pale face, he couldn't bear to make her sad. His figure suddenly changed. His ankle-length hair shrunk to his waist, and his golden eyes turned azure. His face also gradually changed into the one Gu Xingyin was familiar with. I am here, Saintess. Carlos smiled at her. Gu Xingyin witnessed all these changes. It would be strange if she didn't understand. There was no Carlos. He was clearly the incarnation of the god of light. Carlos, it's you. Gu Xingyin asked. As you can see. The god of light smiled and returned to his original appearance. Seeing Gu Xingyin's shocked expression, the god of light once again threw out a bombshell. Carlos admires Hathaway. Do you know about this? Gu Xingyin's face suddenly turned red. Of course she knew about this. However, if it was just Carlos, she would definitely reject him without hesitation. However, Carlos was the god of light, what should she say? The god of light didn't give her a chance to answer. He spoke again. I, the god of light, Alice's, love you. Are you willing to accept my feelings? The world of gods was just that simple and crude. He was never stingy with letting her know what he liked. No citizen of the Ouchi continent would refuse the love of the god of light. As a saintess who wholeheartedly served the god of light, Hathaway naturally wouldn't refuse. For Gu Xingyin, she had already accepted countless confessions from her lover. Everything developed naturally. When Gu Xingyin was hugged by the overjoyed god of light, she was still in a daze, thinking that this development was too fast. After that, the passion of a certain 10,000-year-old virgin made her unable to think about anything else. Gu Xingyin's first thought when she woke up was that the energy of a god was indeed incomparable to that of an ordinary mortal. She had no idea how long she had slept. His body was still a little sore. Thinking about it, he knew that there were definitely many scars on his body. At this moment, she was lying in a familiar embrace. Their skin was pressed against each other, and their warmth blended together. Gu Xingyin missed this feeling very much. She opened her eyes and was met with a pair of dazzling golden eyes. God! She was attracted by those abnormally beautiful eyes and couldn't help but want to reach out and touch them. The god of light allowed her hand to play tricks on his face. "Call me Alice's." Gu Xingyin blushed, but she still obediently called out, "Alice's." The god of light smiled. Out of respect, mortals had always called him God and did not dare to call him by his name. However, at this moment, hearing these words from Gu Xingyin's mouth made him feel extremely comfortable. The two of them put on their clothes, and the god of light walked through the heavenly realm with Gu Xingyin. The angels looked curiously at the mortal who was being gently held by the god. In their heavenly realm, there had never been a mortal. Gu Xingyin smiled at them. She could feel that there was no malice in their gazes. The angels were innocent and flawless, and they were abnormally beautiful. It was difficult for people to have a bad impression of them. The angels were especially sensitive to good and evil. They felt Gu Xingyin's kindness to them. Soon, angels flapped their wings and brought Gu Xingyin flowers, fruits, nectar, and other gifts. Seeing Gu Xingyin get along well with the little fellows he created and almost forget about him, a certain god of light's expression turned ugly again. Chapter 251. A certain possessive god secretly warned the angels, and they all left as if they were frightened. "What's going on?" Gu Xingyin was puzzled. The god of light said casually, "Oh, maybe they all have things to do." Gu Xingyin was suspicious, but she didn't ask any more questions. The two of them spent a few days in heavenly realm without any sweetness until Gu Xingyin proposed to leave. "You still want to go back to the Ouchi continent?" The god of light frowned, and seemed unhappy. The two of them had just established their relationship, and it was a sweet time. It was no wonder he was unhappy. "I'm the Holy Virgin of the Light Church. I can't just disappear without a trace." Gu Xingyin didn't forget about Heidi's mission. Seeing that her lover was still unhappy, Gu Xingyin had to coax him, "Anyway, you can see me whenever you want, and you can see me whenever you miss me, right?" After coaxing and pestering, the man finally relented. However, before Gu Xingyin left the heavenly realm, he still gave her a hard time. Gu Xingyin was still gnashing her teeth when she returned. Gu Xingyin's return was no doubt a relief to the church's personnel. The Holy Virgin had mysteriously disappeared in the Icefield city, and they could only block the news and secretly send people to investigate. Now, she was finally back. And this time, Gu Xingyin came back with good news. From now on, the Ouchi continent will no longer be threatened by the demon race. This news made everyone rejoice. After the church's personnel confirmed that there were no more demon race auras in the two cities, they began their journey back. During this time, no one asked about Carlos. Gu Xingyin also secretly asked around, and found that no one had any impression of this former commander of the Knights of Light. "Saintess, the bath is ready." Heidi walked in quietly. Gu Xingyin loosened his guard and let her take off his robe. Suddenly, he thought of something and said, "You go out. I'll do it myself." Heidi lowered her eyes and left. The moment she closed the door, her eyes revealed undisguised shock. Just now, when she was undressing the Holy Maiden, she clearly saw that there were two ambiguous red marks on her delicate and fair neck. Such marks were obviously proof of love between a man and a woman. Heidi felt her heart beating like a drum. She was a little nervous, but more than that, she was excited. It was obvious that the Holy Maiden had encountered something extraordinary during the days she had been missing. If the Holy Maiden was no longer chaste, Heidi felt her whole body become excited. On the other side, Gu Xingyin was cursing a certain man's lack of self-control in her heart. The marks on her body were, of course, bestowed by the god of light. Not only did that man like to leave marks on her body, he also domineeringly refused to allow her to use magic to remove them. She had almost been seen just now. She let out a long sigh. "Are you cursing me in your heart?" A low voice came from behind her. At the same time, accompanied by the sound of flowing water, a body emitting heat pressed against her. "Why are you here?" Gu Xingyin was surprised. "Didn't you say that if I miss you, I can come and see you anytime?" The man chuckled. Gu Xingyin was speechless. Her next words were drowned out by the man's lips. Poor Gu Xingyin. The marks on her body had not been removed, and now there were more. Chapter 252. When Gu Xingyin came out of the shower, it was already a few hours later. The man had already left after her repeated requests. Heidi and Vivian walked in, and Vivian quickly took out a soft towel to dry her long hair. Heidi stood aside, wanting to say something. "What's the matter?" Gu Xingyin looked up at her and felt that her expression was a little strange. Heidi stood aside and glanced at Gu Xingyin. The woman who had just finished showering had a faint pink spread on her exposed skin, perhaps because of the steam. The layer of holy and dazzling halo in the daytime faded away, and the delicate and flawless face was exposed without reservation. This kind of appearance was indeed very tempting. Heidi sneered in her heart, and said softly, "I'm just a little curious, Saintess, what have you experienced these days?" Gu Xingyin thought of the days when she was in the heavenly realm with the god of light a few days ago, and only felt a little hot on her face. She coughed dryly and said, "It's just a small matter, there's nothing to say." Heidi looked at her jade face covered with pink, and was even more certain of her guess. She continued, "These days, Vivian and I were very worried about your safety, Saintess. Fortunately, you came back safely. Can you just casually pick one or two things to tell us?" Gu Xingyin frowned. Does this Heidi not understand what she meant? "I said I don't want to talk about it, but she's still here. And she's worried about my safety?" Gu Xingyin would believe it if she said that Vivian, this simple girl, was worried about her. Heidi was worried about me? She probably wants me to disappear forever and never come back. She glanced at Heidi and was about to speak, but the Saintess's supporter, Vivian, spoke first. "Heidi, how can you talk to the Saintess like that? The Saintess has already said that she has nothing to say. What do you want to hear?" Vivian was simple, but she was definitely not stupid. She always knew that her companion was not reconciled. She thought that after a long time, Heidi would admit the truth, but she didn't expect that after so long, she still didn't give up. Heidi was embarrassed to continue asking after being scolded by Vivian. She looked at Vivian and sneered in her heart. So protective of Hathaway. When you find out that this so-called Saintess has long lost her pure faith, let's see if you will regret your foolishness today. Gu Xingyin received a system notification. Heidi's hatred towards him continued to rise. He knew that she was preparing to deal with him. System, keep an eye on Heidi. I want to see what she's up to. Don't worry, host. Leave it to this system. The system was quite happy that it could be of use. With the 24-hour monitoring system, Gu Xingyin soon understood what Heidi had been doing these days. Inquiring about the past deposed saintesses and the consequences of being abandoned by the Holy See because they lost their chastity. The conditions for succeeding the Saintess. Gu Xingyin received the messages from the system one by one. She closed her eyes and pondered for a moment. Suddenly, she recalled the day when Heidi undressed her. So that's how it is. He was afraid that she had discovered something. It was all a man's fault. Gu Xingyin hated it. However, it was good to beat her at her own game. Framing the Saintess of Light was a serious crime in the Holy See, enough to be punished with capital punishment. Letting the system continue to keep an eye on Heidi, Gu Xingyin began to silently wait for this woman to court death. Chapter 253. Heidi didn't do anything for the next half a month. Gu Xingyin knew that she hadn't given up. She was just waiting for the right opportunity. When the crown prince of the Ouchi Empire was born, the emperor personally came to ask the Holy See for his blessing. The emperor of the Ouchi Empire was Hathaway's uncle, so the crown prince could be considered her brother. When the Pope came to ask for Gu Xingyin's opinion, Gu Xingyin agreed without hesitation that she would personally bless the crown prince. The ambassador from the Ouchi Empire left happily. Everyone knew that the higher the status of the person who blessed a newborn, the more blessings the child would receive from the gods. Now, in the entire Radiant Church, even the Pope might not necessarily be a match for the Holy Maiden in terms of divine favor. Everyone knew that the Saintess's scepter was personally bestowed by the God of Light. On the day of the Crown Prince's 1-month-old birthday, all the nobles of the Ouchi Empire came to the palace. Gu Xingyin took a bath and changed her clothes. After praying, she went to the main hall. She wore the long robe filled with the power of light given by the God of Light. Holding the scepter personally carved by the god, she went to the Crown Prince's side. The rich power of light began to gather at his fingertips. Just as Gu Xingyin was about to open his mouth to bless the newly born Crown Prince, a female voice suddenly came from behind. "Wait! This woman doesn't deserve to bless His Royal Highness." Everyone turned to look at the source of the voice in surprise. The Saintess's maid? Many people recognized Heidi based on her clothes. "How dare you? Heidi, do you know what you're saying?" Vivian was the first to react and scolded her. The emperor of the Ouchi Empire also looked at Heidi unhappily. It was such an honor for the Saintess to bless her son. What on earth was this woman doing? Heidi sneered inwardly under everyone's questioning and condemning gazes. "You're all so protective of her now. You'll regret it when you find out the truth." She stepped out of the crowd and looked at Gu Xingyin with disdain. "I said that Hathaway Louise doesn't deserve to bless the Crown Prince. She doesn't deserve to be the Saintess of the Holy See." Impudent! The members of the Radiant Church who had come with Gu Xingyin were furious. Openly challenging the authority of the Holy Maiden was a taboo. Gu Xingyin stood in the crowd, looking calm as if Heidi wasn't talking about her. Such self-cultivation made many people admire him endlessly. Heidi looked at this woman who was putting on an act. Let's see if you can still pretend to be so hypocritical later. Honorable Saintess, do you dare to swear to the God of Light that you are still chaste?" Heidi stared straight at Gu Xingyin. Sure enough, Gu Xingyin had expected her to do this. Heidi's words caused an uproar. Could it be that the Saintess had broken her precepts? She was the personal maid of the Saintess. Since she said so, many people secretly looked at Gu Xingyin suspiciously. Gu Xingyin's expression didn't change in the face of suspicion. She even smiled lightly. "Heidi, do you know how big of a sin it is to smear the image of the Saintess and slander the reputation of the Saintess?" Her words made Heidi even more convinced that she was just bluffing. Heidi was full of confidence. She said calmly, "God of Light, if I, Heidi, had maliciously smeared the reputation of the Saintess, then let me be roasted by the holy fire and never be redeemed." Gu Xingyin, "Miss, since you want to die so badly, I won't stop you." Chapter 254. She chuckled and bowed to the only statue of the God of Light in the hall. "God of Light, your most loyal believer, Hathaway Louise, swears to dedicate my purest body and soul to you. If I betray you, let my body be punished by God and never be redeemed." The God of Light rested his chin on his hand as he watched his believer deceive him. She said to dedicate her body and soul to God, but she didn't mention anything about her chastity. The God of Light laughed as he recalled how she was full of weird expressions in private, completely different from the holy and dignified person in front of him. How could she be so cute? The entire hall was silent, and only Gu Xingyin's clear voice could be heard echoing unhurriedly in the hall. The high and mighty statue didn't move at all. Gu Xingyin turned around and looked at Heidi calmly. Heidi's eyes widened. "Impossible, this is impossible. I saw it with my own eyes." She threw herself in front of the God of Light statue and prayed to God, "God, you must have been deceived by this woman. I saw it with my own eyes, she is no longer chaste, she. Ah! To everyone's astonishment, streaks of ethereal golden divine flames began to burn on her body. Looking at the woman who was rolling on the ground due to the pain, everyone remembered the oath she had made earlier. By the God of Light, if I, Heidi, maliciously slander the reputation of the saintess, may I be roasted by the holy fire and never be redeemed. The God of Light really couldn't tolerate a single grain of sand. Gu Xingyin looked at Heidi, who was kneeling in front of the god's statue and begging. She didn't feel the slightest bit of pity. If her plan had succeeded, the one kneeling on the ground and begging would have been Hathaway. Take this sinner away and expel her from the Holy Church forever. Gu Xingyin said indifferently. Immediately, a clergyman came out and took Heidi, who was in pain, away. The holy fire on her body was God's punishment. It was added to Heidi's soul and wouldn't affect anyone else. The emperor of the Aoqi Empire also expressed his opinion. The Aoqi Empire didn't welcome sinners who were rejected by the gods. Heidi's wails gradually faded away, and the interrupted blessing ceremony began again. But this time, everyone had a better understanding of the saintess' godly favor, and their attitude towards her became more cautious. The Aoqi Empire's emperor personally carried the crown prince. Gu Xingyin gently placed her hand, which was filled with pure light, between the baby's eyebrows. May the high and mighty God hear my prayers and bestow his blessings upon this child. May he possess unparalleled talent and selfless character. He will become the continent's most valiant warrior and the most wise ruler, bringing peace and prosperity to his people. She opened her eyes and withdrew the power in her hand. At this moment, the baby in the emperor's arms suddenly opened his eyes. He looked at Gu Xingyin and giggled. His emerald green eyes were clear and flawless, like the most transparent crystal. Gu Xingyin couldn't help but smile. She couldn't help but reach out and gently stroke the baby's smooth face. Thank you, Saintess. The emperor sincerely thanked Gu Xingyin. Your Majesty is too courteous. Speaking of which, the crown prince is also my younger brother. As his elder sister, I can do my part for him. As soon as Gu Xingyin finished speaking, a gentle white light descended from the statue's hand onto the crown prince's body. Thank the gods. The emperor was overjoyed. The nobles of the Aoqi Empire were also overjoyed. This was the God of Light's pity for the Aoqi Empire. Only Gu Xingyin blushed. She clearly heard a sentence in her ear. This can be considered a meeting gift from me, his brother-in-law, to him. Chapter 255. The Saintess of Light, Hathaway Louise, was greatly favored by the God of Light. When she represented the Holy Church in patrolling the Aoqi continent, as long as she went to a place, within 3 years, that place would be blessed with good weather and full of vitality. Everyone said that she was definitely a messenger sent by God to the Aoqi continent to spread God's gospel. Originally, this was only a compliment from the people of the Aoqi continent to the saintess. However, the fact that the saintess didn't age for hundreds of years made this rumor spread even more. She personally blessed Emperor Charlemagne of the Aoqi Empire, who was also the newly born crown prince, and just as she predicted, he grew into a man of indomitable spirit. Emperor Charlemagne was known as the greatest emperor of the Aoqi Empire. Under his leadership, this ancient empire was like a lion awakening from its slumber, making the entire continent feel a shocking power. Gu Xingyin had lived on the Aoqi continent for 600 years. The pope had already passed away, and the new pope was extremely respectful to this saintess who was greatly favored by God. On this day, she vaguely sensed something. She gathered all the upper echelons of the Light Church. The young and charming saintess smiled as gently as ever. She said, "Recently, I have already felt the call from God. I think that I will soon leave this continent that I love so much." The people of the Light Church were shocked. After so many years, Saintess Hathaway had almost become a symbol of the Light Church. Now, was it finally the time? Many people cried out on the spot. Almost all of them had grown up hearing about the saintess' deeds. After joining the Light Church, they had always worshipped this legendary figure. They had never thought that even though the saintess didn't age for hundreds of years, she was actually just an ordinary person. Since she was an ordinary person, she would have to leave one day. On the third day after Gu Xingyin said this, when the maid in charge of taking care of her helped her get out of bed, she was shocked to find that the saintess had already closed her eyes forever. The mountains and rivers mourned. Gu Xingyin was in the heavenly realm, held in the arms of a certain man as she watched the Light Church and the people of the Ouchi continent hold a grand funeral for her. Are you satisfied now? Gu Xingyin turned to look at the man behind her. This person had long wanted her to leave Ouchi continent and return to heavenly realm to live with him. Gu Xingyin still hated him for not knowing how to control himself. How could she let him have his way? In the end, after going around in circles, she stayed in the human world for hundreds of years. If this continued, the God of Light would probably go crazy. The man's answer was a long, hot kiss. On the second day of the funeral, the clergy in charge of guarding the saintess' body watched as her body turned into several streaks of light and disappeared into the horizon. There were many witnesses at the scene. After the news spread out, everyone said that the saintess was summoned by the gods and went to the legendary heavenly realm, which was blissful and worry-free. From then on, the rumors about Saintess Hathaway in the Ouchi continent became even more mysterious. Gu Xingyin could no longer remember how long she and her lover had lived in this world. The gods were not immortal. All living things had a cycle of reincarnation. This world would eventually be reborn after being destroyed. Before the God of Light fell into an eternal sleep, he pulled her into his arms and kissed her fiercely. I seem to have remembered something. Gu Xingyin looked at him with a smile and said, what a coincidence. I also remember something. The two looked at each other and closed their eyes. Chapter 256. When Gu Xingyin was about to enter the next world, the system reminded her, Host, it is recommended that you be mentally prepared. Gu Xingyin was suspicious. What's the matter? Is the next world very difficult? System, the environment is harsh. Before Gu Xingyin had time to ask the system what it meant by harsh environment, she found herself in another place. Gu Xingyin. Ever since my soul became strong enough, the system wasn't gentle to me at all. It clearly gave me a warm reminder before transferring memories. Before she opened her eyes, she found that the surroundings were very bumpy. When she opened her eyes, Gu Xingyin found that her hands and feet were tied and thrown into the back seat of a car. It took her a while to digest the plot. She also understood what harsh environment meant. This world was the apocalypse. The original owner, Li Xingxi, was the third generation of the Li family, and the only female child in the third generation of the Li family. From this, one could imagine how much she was doted on. Moreover, Li Xingxi not only had a good family background, but he was also good-looking and worked hard. At the age of 18, he successfully entered the best university in Hua country, Imperial Capital University. If there was one thing that the original owner wasn't satisfied with, it was Zhong Lingyu, who had been at odds with her since childhood. Zhong Lingyu was the supporting female character of this world. The Li and Zhong families had different standpoints, and the younger generation had always competed with each other since childhood. Zhong Lingyu and Li Xingxi, from childhood to adulthood, competed with each other in terms of appearance, grades, studies, and even boyfriends. Both of them had their own merits. Li Xingxi was bright and beautiful, and Zhong Lingyu was delicate, like a willow, and had an orchid temperament. The two of them were even more competitive in terms of grades. They were admitted to Imperial Capital University in the same year and were known as the two beauties of Imperial Capital University. What made Li Xingxi most comfortable was that the man Zhong Lingyu liked was her boyfriend. She always felt that this matter made her very proud, but she never thought that her boyfriend, Zhao Ziki, was only interested in the Li family's power in the military. When the apocalypse arrived, there was a rumor from the Zhong family that Zhong Lingyu had a rare space ability. Zhao Ziki didn't hesitate to abandon the motionless Li Xingxi and walk together with Zhong Lingyu. During the apocalypse, the military was still strong, and Li Xingxi could have relied on the Li family's power to live a peaceful life. However, Zhong Lingyu joined the largest ability organization in the northern base at that time, Frost. She heard that the boss of Frost liked gorgeous beauties, so she set her sights on Li Xingxi. While the Li family wasn't paying attention, Zhong Lingyu secretly knocked Li Xingxi unconscious and took him away. Who would have thought that before they reached the north, they would encounter a flood of people? Just like that, Li Xingxi died in the zombie tide. Gu Xingyin finished combing and remained silent for a long time. It seemed that at this time, Li Xingxi was already on the way to be kidnapped. The system said, the host can extract the light magic from the previous world. This is the ability that has the greatest destructive power against darkness and filth. Gu Xingyin's eyes lit up. She immediately thought of something and asked, System, did you do it on purpose? First go to the magic world, then let me come to the apocalypse to complete the mission. The system didn't deny it. It's good for us if the host can complete the mission more easily and securely. If it weren't for the fact that the system didn't have a physical body, Gu Xingyin would have hugged it and kissed it. Chapter 257. The system's actions were very fast. Gu Xingyin closed her eyes and felt the abundant light demonic power in her body. In this way, at least she had the power to protect herself in the apocalypse. At this time, the car shook and stopped. Get up and eat. A voice obviously said to Gu Xingyin. She opened her eyes and glanced at the man who spoke. She knew this person. His name was Qiao Cheng. He was one of the 3 people sent by Zhong Lingyu to kidnap Li Xingxi. He was also the only one who treated her kindly. The other 2 people looked at Gu Xingyin with unfriendly eyes. Seeing that Gu Xingyin did not speak, Qiao Cheng thought that Miss Gu Xingyin had lost her temper and refused to cooperate. He sighed and said, It's useless for you to do this. We've already taken you out of the base in the capital. You're just an ordinary person. Even if you escape, you can't go back alive in this world, right? Gu Xingyin was silent for a while and said, Help me untie the rope. Qiao Cheng hesitated. Gu Xingyin sneered. What? Are you worried that I, an ordinary person without the strength to truss a chicken, can escape under the eyes of you 3 people with abilities? At this time, the fat man in the driver's seat said, You little girl have a big temper. But then again, your face is really handsome. He chuckled and glanced at Gu Xingyin with ill intentions. Qiao Cheng untied the rope that bound Gu Xingyin's hands and feet and warned the fat man, Lai Zi, don't forget that this woman is to be offered to the boss of Ice Frost Base. The fat man curled his lips. I know, I'm just saying. The other person always covered half of his face with a straw hat and nestled in the passenger seat. Gu Xingyin had never seen his face or heard him speak. However, judging from the attitude of Lai Zi and Qiao Cheng, this person was probably a ruthless character. The food that Qiao Cheng gave her was just a glass of water and a small bag of compressed biscuits. It didn't taste good and was just barely enough to satisfy her hunger. Even so, Lai Zi still felt heartache. Motherfucker, this food is enough for me to find a hot girl in the base and have a good time. Gu Xingyin, who had always lived a life of luxury. She really couldn't swallow it. At this time, the Li family should be anxious to find her, Gu Xingyin thought absent-mindedly. She looked out of the window. The sky was overcast, as if someone had forcefully covered it with a heavy curtain, blocking the sunlight from entering. The car was parked on a highway. The ground was full of potholes. Occasionally, one could see overturned vehicles on the side of the road, as well as bloodstains and broken limbs. The air was filled with the smell of blood, making it hard for people to breathe. It inexplicably reminded her of the land of woe in the last world. From afar, he saw a wobbly figure moving forward slowly. At this moment, from such a posture, Gu Xingyin knew that it was definitely not a living human. This was the most terrible thing in the apocalypse, zombies. No one knew why the zombies would appear, just like no one knew why the whole world would change when they woke up from their sleep. In just one night, the people who woke up found that the sun didn't rise again. The sky was covered with a layer of haze and the ground began to collapse. Some of them developed the legendary superpowers, but most of them turned into monsters. Chapter 258. Those monsters had no breath, no heartbeat, no emotions, and no consciousness. They only had the instinct to eat people. They were actually dead. Walking Dead. This was the real Walking Dead. This kind of creature was now collectively known as zombies. Zombies fed on the living. Once a normal person was bitten by a zombie, they would also be infected and become a new zombie. Today's Earth had completely become a paradise for zombies. The surviving humans formed several bases. The largest one was, of course, the place where Li Xingxi used to live, the Imperial Base. The world's top scientists and biologists gathered there, as well as the world's most powerful politicians. Secondly, there were bases built by some powerful superpowered people. In fact, the most famous one was Frost, in the north. It was said that Thunder, the ruler of Frost in the north, was not only a rare mutated Thunder superpower, but also the only king-level superpower on Earth. Moreover, he had gathered a large number of loyal subordinates. In terms of high-end combat power, even the Imperial Base might not be comparable to Frost. Gu Xingyin browsed through the information provided by the system and felt more and more that this Thunder was very likely to be her lover. After all, in every world, her lover was almost the coolest and most domineering one. Of course, she still had to wait until she saw the real person to confirm the situation. Gu Xingyin sorted out the plot and counted the days. About 4 days later, her group would encounter a zombie tide. What was a zombie tide? Hundreds and thousands of zombies migrated en masse. With the strength of her group, it was too easy to be swallowed by the excited zombie tide. She had to find a way to avoid this, Gu Xingyin thought to herself. Who sent you to catch me? Gu Xingyin suddenly asked while biting the compressed biscuit. Qiao Cheng was stunned for a moment, but the driver laughed. TSK. Why do you care where we came from? You just need to be obedient. Unexpectedly, Gu Xingyin's expression was unusually calm. I heard you guys talking. It seems that you want to give me to Thunder, the person in charge of Frost. Someone instigated you to do this, right? What kind of benefits can you get from this? The person who had been sitting on the passenger seat with half of his face covered by a hat suddenly moved. His sharp gaze scrutinized Gu Xingyin. Gu Xingyin's expression did not change as he endured his scrutiny. She already knew who this man was, Thunder's confidant, an ice ability user, Len Han. When Gu Xingyin heard this name from the system for the first time, her expression was B. What kind of parents would be so heartless as to give their child, especially their son, such a name? Of course, although this ice-cold name was strange, his strength was solid. In the entire Hua country, there were no more than 10 ice ability users who were close to the 9th level. No one answered Gu Xingyin's question. She didn't take it seriously and said to herself, Lotzi, your fire ability is at level 4. Did that woman Zhong Lingyu send you to knock me out and take me away? Qiao Cheng, water ability martial arts, a free ability user from Frost Base. This mission was a temporary commission. She didn't care about the shocked expressions of the two people and slowly looked at the last person. Your Excellency. Do you also need me to reveal your identity? Chapter 259. For the first time, the man in the straw hat sat up straight in the carriage. Under the straw hat was a pale and handsome face that could be called beautiful. He looked coldly at Gu Xingyin and said in a hoarse voice, "Then tell me." Gu Xingyin smiled and said, "Your superpower is the same as your name." The temperature in the carriage suddenly dropped, and a thin layer of frost even formed on the seat under Ling Bing's body. Lai Zi and Xiao Cheng looked at Ling Bing in shock. The three of them were not together. To be precise, Lai Zi and Xiao Cheng were together. As for Ling Bing, he was just an ability user that the two of them had brought along after stealing Li Xingxi. In any case, they were all going to Frost Base. One more ability user would be one more guarantee. They could feel the power of Ling Bing, but they never thought that the other party would be able to affect them just by relying on his aura. Especially Fatty Lai. Ice and fire countered each other. He simply had a feeling that under the suppression of the other party, his ability could not be used at all. Unlike the two of them, Gu Xingyin was still smiling indifferently. She guessed that Ling Bing might have appeared here to do some sort of mission. Afraid of causing a misunderstanding, she added, "If I said that I'm not an ordinary person, I'm also an ability user, would you believe me?" Ling Bing did not say anything, obviously waiting for Gu Xingyin to continue. Gu Xingyin did not keep them in suspense. "My superpower is related to prophecy. If you believe me, then listen to what I'm going to say next. If you don't believe me, then pretend that I didn't say anything." The three of them were attracted by her prophecy. This was an extremely rare superpower. Frost Base had a prophecy ability user. She could not foresee the details of things, but she had a certain sense of good and bad luck. Even so, that ability user was heavily protected by thunder. Hearing Gu Xingyin say that she had awakened a prophecy ability, the few of them had different reactions. He always had an icy face, and no one could tell what he was thinking except for himself. Lai Zi was stunned for a moment before he sneered and said, "The eldest daughter of the Li family didn't awaken her superpower. This is something that the entire imperial base knows. If you want to make up something, make up a more reliable one." Xiao Qing glanced at Gu Xingyin. Although he didn't say anything, his eyes showed that he didn't believe her. Gu Xingyin didn't look at them. She only stared coldly and said word by word, "4 days later, there will be a zombie tide on the national road we are on." TSK. Lai Zi was the first to speak. "I thought you were going to say something." "Zombie horde? How long has it been since the apocalypse? I've never seen a zombie horde. You just opened your mouth and the zombie horde is here." "Shut up." Gu Xingyin was impatient with this fatty. "I've already said it. If you don't believe me, just pretend I didn't say anything." She looked at him coldly. "How about we make a deal?" She coldly raised her eyebrows and looked at the calm girl. She rarely nodded. "Speak. Let's change our route. You send me back to the Imperial base." Gu Xingyin ignored Lai Zi and Xiao Cheng's widened eyes and continued, "4 days later, you will see the results. If I'm not wrong, it's equivalent to saving your life." Leng Han felt that this woman was crazy. "Why do you think I will agree?" Chapter 260. Why don't you agree? Gu Xingyin said matter-of-factly, "I already said that if you believe me, the worst result would be a delay of 4 days. But if we really encounter a zombie tide, even if you..." She glanced at Leng Han and said, "I admit that you are very powerful, but even if you are as strong as thunder, you might not be able to escape unscathed from the zombie tide, right?" Leng Han remained silent, as if he was considering. The two of them were going to bring Gu Xingyin back to get the commission. If they were really taken away by this cold person, wouldn't their trip be in vain? Panty shouted, "Don't believe this woman's nonsense. She just wants to take the opportunity to escape." Gu Xingyin coldly glanced at the fatty and said indifferently, "I told you to shut up." When she said these words, it carried the deterrence of light magic. Panty only felt that Gu Xingyin's voice seemed to be knocking on his mind. He subconsciously wanted to refute, but found that he couldn't open his mouth for a moment. He looked at Gu Xingyin in shock, but the other party didn't look at him. On the other hand, Len Han looked at Gu Xingyin thoughtfully and said in a low voice, "All right, I agree." Gu Xingyin smiled slightly, happy cooperation. The two of them actually didn't have the slightest intention of paying attention to the other two. Xiao Cheng's expression turned solemn as he looked at Len Han. "Sir, Miss Li is our spoils of war. It's not very kind of you to be like this." Gu Xingyin sneered and said, "You guys knocked me out and brought me out. You're even preparing to give me away. Now you're talking about kindness." She coldly looked at the two of them. "Before I turn hostile, scram." Panty fiercely spat on the ground. "Fuck, where did this pretty boy come from? I'm giving you some face and being polite, but you really think you're something. Your grandpa Panty." An ice blade flew past his face, and Panty's words came to an abrupt end. He swallowed his saliva, his face somewhat pale. He didn't even see his opponent make a move with that ice blade just now. If this man wanted to take her life, Lotzi shuddered and squeezed out an ugly smile. "Just now. I've offended you." As he spoke, he opened the car door. "Please get out of the car. Forgive us for not sending you off." Gu Xingyin smiled faintly. "Who said we're getting off?" The smile on his face froze. Gu Xingyin said slowly, "I now announce that we are going to rob this car. You two, get out of the car now." A trace of a smile flashed across his eyes when he heard her say such shameless words so calmly. A trace of anger flashed across Pansy's face. He carefully looked at Len Han, but found that the other party had no intention of objecting. Even if they drove, it would take at least 10 days to reach Frost Base. If they walked, Lotzi hesitated, but Xiao Qing sighed and got out of the car first. Seeing that his companions had left, Lotzi looked resentfully at Gu Xingyin and also got out of the car. Gu Xingyin suddenly called out to Xiao Qing, "Remember to take another path." Xiao Qing didn't say anything. He just lowered his head and walked forward. "With your strength, these two people shouldn't be able to catch you." There were only two people left in the car, so he suddenly said coldly. He looked at Gu Xingyin with a trace of inquiry in his eyes. This Miss Li seemed to be different from the rumors. Chapter 261. Gu Xingyin thought to herself, Li Xingxi was really kidnapped by these two people. She couldn't explain this matter, so she only vaguely said, "Anything can happen when there are accidents." Fortunately, Len Han didn't care about this. He raised his hand and threw something at Gu Xingyin. Gu Xingyin caught it and saw that it was a bag of packaged ham. She was surprised and said coldly, "Looking at the way you eat the compressed biscuits, I think the young miss has never suffered before." There was a hint of ridicule in his tone, but Gu Xingyin was not angry. She tore open the package. Sure enough, this thing tasted much better than the compressed biscuits. "Thank you." She looked coldly at her. Even though she ate very quickly, she still maintained a good demeanor. Obviously, this was a natural upbringing that had been engraved into her bones. "I just want to wait and see your so-called prophecy. If what you said is true, then this pack of ham is nothing." Of course, Gu Xingyin could hear the cold words, but there was no accident in this kind of thing, right? 4 days was just about the time the two of them returned to the capital base. One night, after Gu Xingyin fell asleep, she gently pressed a small earring on her right earlobe. Bing bing. A deep voice sounded in Bing Bing's ears. "I told you, don't call me by that name." The handsome man clenched his teeth. A low laugh came from the other end. After a while, he said, "What's wrong? What happened to contacting me at this time?" He said coldly, "The mission went smoothly, but there was a small accident. I might not be able to go back for the time being." The man on the other side said in a deep voice, "What happened?" She coldly told him about her encounter with Gu Xingyin and her prediction about the zombie tide. After a moment of silence, he said, "Follow her well. If what she said is true, do your best to poach her. He turned off the communication and smiled coldly. She was the young miss of the Lee family in the capital base. How could it be so easy to poach her? He didn't notice that not far behind him, a tiny light spot was floating on a leaf. Even if Leng Han saw this kind of light, he would probably think that it was a firefly. In the apocalypse, there weren't many of these little things. Gu Xingyin was not surprised that Leng Han would tell Lei Ting about this. What she wanted was Lei Ting's attention to her. In the distant north, a man stood by the window, still thinking about the news that had been sent back coldly. Li Xingxi. That's interesting. The cold moonlight shone through the window onto his face, outlining a determined and handsome face. It was as if he was the work of an ancient Greek sculptor. The lines on the man's face were cold and firm. His gaze was as sharp as an eagle's. Anyone who was targeted by him would have no room to escape. What are you doing? He looked coldly at the neatly dressed Gu Xingyin in surprise. Night vigil. Gu Xingyin looked at him strangely and instantly understood what he meant. Are you afraid that I'll sneak away while you're asleep? Gu Xingyin said, Don't worry, the most powerful ice ability user on Earth right now. I won't be willing to throw away such a powerful bodyguard before returning to the capital base. Chapter 262. Han Bing knew that she had misunderstood his meaning and said, I just didn't expect that a young miss like you would take the initiative to ask for a night watch. Gu Xingyin stopped what she was doing and looked at him with a smile that was not a smile. You look down on women? Cold, no. Then that's it. Gu Xingyin checked her outfit, used her hand to support herself, and nimbly climbed onto the roof of the car. She looked at Gu Xingyin coldly with a complicated gaze, then obediently opened the car door and sat in. The night passed without incident. The next day, when he woke up, he saw Gu Xingyin coming down from the roof of the car. Her body was light and graceful, and her feet were accurately calculated to ensure the least effort and leeway. She could see more clearly during the day than at night. From her actions, it could be seen that this woman was not like the rumors that she was an ordinary person without the strength to truss a chicken. Not to mention her special ability, just the move she casually showed was not something that could be done by someone who was not trained in martial arts. Gu Xingyin smiled, her body had been modified by the system, and her data was close to the peak of ordinary humans. Furthermore, Gu Xingyin had experienced the world of sword cultivators before. Although this world was not suitable for sword cultivators, the external martial arts of body refinement were very suitable. The two of them casually ate 10 o'clock food and continued to head towards the imperial capital base. You drive, I'll rest for a while. Wake me up if anything happens. Gu Xingyin said a few words to Leng Han without the slightest hesitation. She leaned against the passenger seat and fell asleep with her head tilted to the side. The woman's appearance was undoubtedly beautiful, otherwise, the two of them wouldn't have had their eyes on her. Looking at her from such a close distance, there was still not a single flaw on her face. Her plump lips were slightly pouted. Thinking about it, the feeling of her tentacles should be, realizing what he was thinking, a trace of embarrassment appeared on his cold and pale face. He retracted his gaze, started the car, and turned his attention to the road ahead. The two of them were lucky. Other than encountering a few lone zombies, nothing major happened. Soon, the two of them arrived at the Imperial Capital Base. As the world's largest survivor base, Imperial Capital Base had the strictest security and auditing. Gu Xingyin looked at the long line outside the base. They were all people who came from other places to seek protection. She got out of the car and walked to the front of the team. Miss Li. The person in charge's eyes lit up when he saw her. Li Xingxi was very famous in the base. Moreover, the Li family had almost turned the entire base upside down in order to find her. The manager made a phone call. Gu Xingyin waited patiently at the side, coldly standing beside her without saying a word. Soon, a tall man in a camouflage uniform rushed over. "Baby." The man saw Gu Xingyin and blurted out happily. Gu Xingyin, before she could say anything, the man gave her a strong bear hug that suffocated her. With great difficulty, she broke free from the man's embrace. Gu Xingyin glared at the man. "Third brother, what are you calling me in front of so many people?" The man smiled when he heard this. He looked at Gu Xingyin with interest. "Where have you been these past few days? We're so anxious. Grandpa hasn't slept for several days." At this time, he saw the coldness behind Gu Xingyin, and his face immediately turned from doting to serious. "Who are you?" Chapter 263. Gu Xingyin quickly smiled and said, "Third brother, I was knocked unconscious and taken away. He was the one who saved me." Only then did Li Minglang's expression look a little better. He sincerely said to Ling Leng, "Thank you very much, my code name is Ice," he said coldly. Li Minglang was stunned. "Code name Ice?" He looked at Ling Leng with vigilance. "I didn't expect you to be the head of the Ice faction. I wonder why you have come to my imperial capital base." Gu Xingyin said at this time, "Third brother, I've been standing here for so long. Let's go in first and talk, okay?" After the two of them were tested and confirmed that they did not carry the virus, they were brought back to the Li family by Li Minglang. The Li family had already received the news that Gu Xingyin had returned safely. At this moment, there were many people gathered in the Li family's hall. After enduring a wave of concern from her family, Gu Xingyin began to talk about her experiences in the past few days. "My Li family will definitely not let those two adepts go." Old Man Li immediately issued a wanted order. And Lotzi could be considered to have entered the blacklist of the imperial capital base. Gu Xingyin didn't feel that this was too much. Even if had shown her a trace of kindness, she still advised him not to go to the places where the zombie tide passed. However, the sins he had committed before could not be offset. Before doing anything, one had to consider the consequences of this matter. "When I was in the car, I discovered that I had awakened a superpower." Gu Xingyin released this bombshell. "What?" The Li family was both surprised and happy. Their family's Xingxi was the treasure of the whole family, and the lack of superpowers had always worried the whole family. After all, in this apocalyptic world, it was really too difficult for an ordinary person. Gu Xingyin did not hide anything. She first said what she had said to Ling Han earlier, "Today is already the 4th day. If nothing unexpected happens, the zombie tide has already begun to appear." The Li family was still stunned by the shocking news she had brought. Gu Xingyin had brought an even greater shock. She raised her right hand, and specks of light flickered between her fingers. An incomparably holy aura filled the air. "Actually, I've awakened 2 arcanas. Other than prophecy, there's also light." This time, even Ling Han raised his eyebrows. It was actually a rare dual elemental ability. The prophecy ability aside, the light ability was also an extremely rare ability in the post-apocalyptic world. Ling Han had only seen one ability user with a light ability. That ability user's ability was very weak and could only be used as a light source. It was definitely not like the light on Gu Xingyin's hand, which made people feel peaceful and tranquil from the bottom of their hearts. No one could ignore the power contained in the fragmented light on her slender, soft, and fair fingertips that could even be called a work of art. Gu Xingyin's fingers moved slightly, and a glimmer of light fell from her fingertips. The floor of the Imperial base, which was made of the strongest material and could resist the attacks of zombies, melted into a hole at a speed visible to the naked eye. Everyone looked at Li Xingxi's beautiful white hands in shock. Who would have thought that this pair of seemingly weak and harmless hands actually possessed such terrifying destructive power? Good. Old Man Li was the first to react. He laughed loudly, as expected of my Li family's descendant. Leng Han also recovered from his shock and thought to himself that he must report this news to his boss later. Chapter 264. After Gu Xingyin's superpower was detected, she was incorporated into the superpower team of the Imperial Capital Base by the Li family. Even though she was the most favored daughter of the Li family, she still had to bear the responsibility of a superpower user. It was precisely because these superpower users had been fighting at the forefront that they brought safety to more ordinary people in the base. They enjoyed better treatment than ordinary people, and no one felt that it was unfair. Gu Xingyin joined the first group of superpower users in the Imperial Capital Base. The superpower users in the Imperial Capital Base were divided into 10 groups, with the upper limit of 100 people in each group. They were divided according to strength. The first group was where the most powerful superpower users in the entire Imperial Capital Base gathered. That night, Gu Xingyin sat there quietly, waiting for a result. The Li family told the other people in charge of the Imperial Capital Base. Although they didn't believe that there would really be a zombie tide, under the Li family's compulsion, they ordered their subordinates to avoid the area pointed out by Gu Xingyin. The satellite of the Imperial Capital Base also began to monitor that route. They didn't find any movement until midnight. Many people were relieved. Li Minglang even comforted Gu Xingyin. "Don't worry. Maybe your premonition is wrong. This is normal." Gu Xingyin stared at the surveillance screen. "Wait, look." Her words attracted everyone's attention. "Inform the researchers to open the map again." "Open it." Old Master Li was the first to notice that something was wrong. He ordered in a deep voice. The entire central area was completely displayed in front of everyone. Then, everyone's face turned ugly. Everyone could see that countless invisible red dots were gathering from all directions. Although the speed was very slow, it was only a matter of time before they gathered together. Everyone knew what those red dots meant: zombies. That night, none of the higher-ups of the Imperial Capital Base rested. No one knew how lethal thousands of zombies would be when they gathered together. What kind of force could resist their attack? The Imperial Capital Base held a recollection overnight. Gu Xingyin, the person who successfully predicted the zombie tide, was naturally treated as a distinguished guest. "I wonder if Miss Li can predict the purpose of the zombies this time." The speaker was dressed in a suit and leather shoes. He wore a pair of silver-rimmed glasses and had an amiable temperament. He was the head of the Zhong family, Zhong Lingyu's father, Zhong Changchuan. Li Xingxi admired this person very much. Although the Zhong and Li families had always been at odds, Patriarch Zhong had always done things for the country and the people. It was just that Zhong Lingyu's mother died early, and her relationship with her father had been bad since she was a child. After awakening her abilities, she didn't stay in the Imperial Capital Base but chose to go to the far north. She shook her head. "I can only roughly sense that their target is not the Imperial Capital Base." Hearing Gu Xingyin's words, many people heaved a sigh of relief. Gu Xingyin was telling the truth. This wave of zombies did not target any human base. Instead, they gathered together and went to the glaciers in the southernmost part of the earth. Even though the weather there was extremely bad, and countless zombies could not withstand the extreme cold and fell there, the remaining zombies did not stop moving. It was as if something was summoning them. Inexplicably, Gu Xingyin had a bad feeling in her heart. Chapter 265. This time, the meeting didn't come to a conclusion. In the end, the base decided to hold a meeting with the other large bases. Gu Xingyin also started talking to the system. "System, how did the zombies in this world come to be?" Gu Xingyin frowned. This disaster came out of nowhere. It was as if the entire Earth had mutated overnight. The system flashed with white light. It wasn't shown in the original plot. The system can only detect abnormal energy fluctuations in the south. South? Gu Xingyin looked into the distance. Was that the destination of the zombie wave? Gu Xingyin officially reported to the 1st Regiment today. The 1st Regiment's headquarters was in the eastern region of the base. In terms of treatment and facilities, it was one of the best in the entire Imperial base. Gu Xingyin was attracted by many facilities along the way. There were a lot of fitness and power training equipment. Many ability users were training their powers or sparring with each other. In this world, the stronger one's strength was, the higher the chance of survival. No one dared to relax. She also attracted a lot of attention. It wasn't until Gu Xingyin walked into the innermost office that the ability users started to talk. Who is this beauty? Is she a new ability user in our 1st Regiment? You don't know her. The famous Miss Li of the Li family, Li Xingxi. I heard that she was tested to have awakened an ability. She was assigned to the 1st Regiment as soon as she awakened. It seems that her potential is not low. Someone sighed. There were a total of 9 levels in the apocalypse. After the 9th level was the legendary king level. Generally, when a paranormal first awakened, they were all level 1 paranormals. At first, everyone thought that paranormals started from level 1, and later on, high-level paranormals appeared one after another. Later, they found out that not all ability users were level 1 ability users when they first awakened. There were a small number of people whose abilities reached level 2, level 3, or even level 4 as soon as they awakened. At the same time, their abilities were stronger than the average ability user, and their speed of growth was faster than the average ability user. The only king-level ability user on Earth, Lei Ting, was said to be a powerful level 5 ability user when he first awakened. The 1st Regiment's threshold was also level 5. Could it be that Miss Li was also a level 5 talent when she first awakened? How is that possible? There's only one person on Earth with a superpower like Lei Ting. Not just anyone can compare to him, a man with an arrogant expression said disdainfully. His words weren't pleasant. Although some people frowned, no one refuted him. Taking a closer look, the surrounding people all looked at this man with fear in their eyes. This man's name was Mu Yi, a level 7 metal ability user. A 7th level ability user, even in the first group, was considered a very powerful expert, not to mention that the metal type ability user was famous for its powerful attacks. Mu Yi's temper was famous in the base for being difficult to get along with, and he hated people with prominent backgrounds. It was said that when the zombie attack broke out, Mu Yi's parents, who were ordinary people, were killed by zombies because they didn't get help in time. Since then, he had a bad impression of those who enjoyed special privileges. There was another reason why he didn't like Li Xingxi. Mu Yi once confessed to Li Xingxi, but at that time, Li Xingxi, who had just learned that Zhao Ziki betrayed her without hesitation, rejected him with a very bad attitude. Chapter 266. Congratulations on becoming a member of our 1st Regiment, Miss Li. A burly man reached out his hand to Gu Xingyin with a smile. You're too kind, Commander Shen. Gu Xingyin was also smiling. Shen Zhong was the strongest man in the Imperial base, the leader of the 1st Regiment, and a 9th level pinnacle fire ability user. He was the only one in the 1st Regiment who knew Gu Xingyin's true power level. Shen Zhong was naturally very happy to welcome this strong man. He personally brought Gu Xingyin to the place where the ability users were gathered and introduced Gu Xingyin to them. This is Miss Li Xingxi, a light ability user and a new member of our 1st Regiment. She's temporarily assigned to the 2nd Squad. Lin Xiao, I'll leave Xingxi to you. A young man in his 20s stepped forward and said, Yes, sir. Some people nearby joked, Lin Xiao, your 2nd Squad is so lucky to have such a beauty. That's right, that's right. They're not like our team. They're all men. Commander, what's the level of this Miss Li's power? The minimum requirement for joining our 1st Regiment seems to be a 5th level ability user, right? Mu Yi said with an unpleasant expression. Shen Zhong's face darkened. He knew Mu Yi's little problem. But for the sake of Mu Yi's strength, he tolerated it. However, Gu Xingyin's power level was currently a secret, so he couldn't casually reveal it. He was just thinking of an excuse when Gu Xingyin said with a smile, "Why go through so much trouble? I heard that we're going out on a mission today, so I volunteered to sign up and let everyone have a look." When she said this, she won the good impression of many people. Obviously, the commander deliberately ignored her power level when introducing her. There must be a special meaning behind it. After all, the Imperial Base's review of ability users was quite strict. In fact, according to the people in power in the base, Gu Xingyin had the power of prophecy, so it was best for her to stay in the base and receive everyone's protection instead of going out and putting herself in danger. This suggestion was firmly rejected by Gu Xingyin. What a joke! Her prophecy ability was nothing but nonsense. What she relied on was that she knew a little about the plot of this world. Gu Xingyin's true strength lay in the light magic she inherited from the previous world. Gu Xingyin could not afford to stay in the base every day and enjoy the leisure brought about by the bloody battles of others even though he had the strength to back him up. In the end, Gu Xingyin clenched her teeth and displayed the might of a high-ranked light magic in front of those people. Only then did the shocked crowd agree to let her go on a mission. However, even though they were very confident in her abilities, the people in the base also secretly informed Xinzhong that when Gu Xingyin went out to do missions, they must arrange for a few people to secretly protect her. If necessary, he would die for her. This was the order Xinzhong had received. He didn't know what Miss Li had that could make the boss of the base say something like that, but he still lowered his head and accepted the order. This time, their mission was to rescue their companions who were trapped in an abandoned military factory. The group of ability users also went out to take on the mission. They found an arsenal. As a result, after covering the rest of the team and moving the arsenal away, the remaining 8 people found that the only exit had been surrounded by a large number of zombies. Fortunately, although they couldn't get out and the zombies outside couldn't come in, the food in their backpacks couldn't last for a few days, so they sent a distress signal to the base. Chapter 267. In the end, the rescue team was made up of 15 people. Among them were Gu Xingyin and Mu Yi, who insisted on tagging along. When they arrived at the military factory, they found that things were far trickier than they had imagined. The factory had almost become a zombie nest. Gu Xingyin estimated that there were at least 200 zombies wandering around. According to those paranormals, they were in a secret room with only one exit. Although zombies couldn't get in, it also meant that even if they came out, they would have to face hundreds of zombies' attacks. A paranormal turned on the communicator in his ear. "Monkey, monkey, are you there? Answer me if you can hear me." He turned on the sharing mode, so Gu Xingyin heard his answer clearly. "I can hear you. We are in the second floor of the basement of the military factory. We have sent people out to explore these 2 days. The zombies are mainly active in the basement, the big exit, and the hall of the military factory. There are not many zombies in front of our door. The basement is the only way. If we want to go through it, we have to kill all the zombies in there. Every time we try to break out, we die here. There are too many zombies. We can't kill all of them. After we kill a batch, new ones will come. So, in fact, the main thing is to rely on speed. As long as we can kill all the zombies in an instant, it won't be difficult." Gu Xingyin said in a low voice. "Kill all the zombies in an instant?" Mu Yi sneered. "Miss Li, do you think zombies are made of foam? Do you think they will be destroyed by your light power?" He was obviously mocking Gu Xingyin's light power. Gu Xingyin frowned and didn't say anything. It was best to slap this kind of person in the face with facts. After parking the car in a secluded place, they got out and approached the military factory. There were scattered zombies wandering around outside. A fire paranormal lit a flame between his fingers and put a piece of meat of an unknown creature on it to roast. The wind paranormal successfully sent the smell into the armory. Soon, howls could be heard coming from the armory. One by one, zombies appeared at the gate. They seemed to be hesitating about where the smell was coming from. The fire-powered man grinned and said, "Watch how I sneak away from the zombies." He took a stick out of nowhere and hung the piece of meat on the roof of the car. Then, he stepped on the accelerator. The rumbling sound attracted the attention of the zombies, and the smell of food seemed to be coming from that place. Many zombies came out of the military factory one after another and started to chase after his car. "I'll take these zombies for a ride first. I'll leave the rest to you." The voice of the paranormal came from the communicator. Looking at the situation, more than half of the zombies in the military factory should have come out. The few of them stepped into the dilapidated gates of the military factory. The abandoned military factory was like a man-eating beast, coldly looking at the group of people walking towards it. Sure enough, there were fewer zombies in the hall. Only a few were wandering around, but no one was relaxed. Perhaps due to the influence of the previous fragrance, the zombies inside seemed to be a little restless, and creepy howls rose and fell one after another. "These zombies are breaking the door." The paranormal who was trapped in the secret room suddenly panicked. Chapter 268. Gu Xingyin looked serious and said, "Let's make it quick." She took the lead and walked inside. Many people saw that the female paranormal's fingertips were shining. Those zombies seemed to be afraid of her power, and they hesitated, which was rare. That had never happened before. Everyone thought that zombies had no thoughts, so how could they be afraid? Gu Xingyin smiled secretly. Although they had no thoughts, their biological instincts were always there. In the magic world, those zombies belonged to the dark side. Naturally, they would be afraid of the purest power of light. Stay for 3 months to clean up the zombies in the hall. The rest of you, follow me. Gu Xingyin played the role of a leader without any self-awareness. Although the others were dissatisfied, they knew that it was not the time to care about that. They soon came to the big exit of the basement. Sure enough, there were many more zombies here than in the hall. Humph! Mu Yi wanted to show off. He spread his hands, and dozens of sharp blades with cold light attacked the zombies. Many zombies fell to the ground. He looked at Gu Xingyin and smiled provocatively. To everyone's surprise, Gu Xingyin didn't use her big move. Instead, she praised, "Well done. You're very good." Mu Yi looked like he had swallowed a few flies in an instant. At that time, a voice sounded in everyone's ears again, "These zombies seem to be crazy. They're hitting the door desperately. We can't hold it anymore." Gu Xingyin took the lead. She moved her feet continuously to avoid the attacking zombies. Unexpectedly, she planned to go directly to the passage. Mu Yi paused for a moment and then followed behind her. Several superpowered people also followed behind them. The rest were responsible for cleaning up the zombies at the big exit, so that they wouldn't be attacked from the front and the back. When they came to the entrance of the passage, the scene in front of them made their scalps tingle. The entrance of the 2-meter-wide passage was crowded with zombies. Gu Xingyin and the others couldn't even see the other side of the passage. Most of those zombies had incomplete limbs, and they stank all over, which really made people lose their appetite. Gu Xingyin only felt a murderous aura permeating the air. Although she did not possess the body of light, she still practiced light magic. Thus, she was naturally repulsed by these filthy things. Mu Yi looked at the zombie crowd in front of him and couldn't help but hesitate. There are so many of them. It's impossible for us to save them before the next batch of zombies comes. Gu Xingyin closed her eyes. A holy aura emanated from her body. Not only did the superpowered people feel strange, even the zombies in the corridor seemed to feel something and became more restless. Gu Xingyin stretched out her hands, and a 1-foot-long crescent-shaped white light blade gradually took shape in her hands. Chapter 269. The entire passage was empty in an instant. It was dead silent. It was Gu Xingyin's words that broke the silence. The zombies outside have been cleared. Come out quickly. Mu Yi came back to his senses, feeling his throat dry. The others also looked at Gu Xingyin's hands in shock. It was hard to imagine that such a pair of hands could be so destructive. The heavy door was pushed open. A few figures ran over from the other side of the passage. They were the superpowered people who were trapped in the secret room. Looking at the empty passage, the superpowered people were confused. Didn't you say that you cleared the zombies? Why is this place so clean? It was so clean, as if the zombies had never been here. The superpowered people looked at each other, not knowing how to describe the scene they had just seen. In fact, if they hadn't seen it with their own eyes, they wouldn't have believed that it was a scene from a magic film. The roars of zombies were heard again. It seemed that more zombies were coming. Gu Xingyin made a prompt decision. Let's get out of here. They came to the exit. There were at least dozens of zombies around. The superpowered people joined the fight and soon cleared a path. Don't fight. Let's get out of here. Gu Xingyin didn't use magic again. Although she could still use such mid-level magic a few times, those superpowered people could handle it. When they went out, they were surprised to find that the fire-powered man, who had led the zombies for a walk, was waiting for them. In addition, there were a few strange cars outside. Gu Xingyin looked at one of the cars. Her intuition told her that the man inside was very strong. At the same time, a pair of penetrating eyes focused on her. The fire-powered man walked up and said, "When I was leading the zombies for a walk, I happened to meet people from Ice Frost Base. They killed those zombies by the way." Gu Xingyin frowned. There was only one person in Ice Frost Base who could make her feel threatened. She walked to the front of the car and knocked on the window, which had obviously been specially treated. Thunder. His tone was firm. The special glass slowly lowered, revealing the man's resolute and angular face. The eldest daughter of the Li family? Gu Xingyin bent down and leaned close to the window. They could hear each other's breathing. Thunder heard her laugh and said, "Nice to meet you." Then, she nodded at the people from Ice Frost and left in a carefree manner. She really did just say hello. A superpowered man from Ice Frost Base was left dumbfounded. This woman is really unique. He had seen many women sticking close to his boss, but this was the first time he had seen such a natural and unrestrained woman. Lei Ting frowned. He felt that Gu Xingyin gave him a different feeling. The first time he saw her, he felt an indescribable throbbing in his heart. Ever since he was young, he had been having a recurring dream. In the dream, there was an indistinct figure of a woman. He could only occasionally see a pair of gentle and quiet blue eyes and a head of dazzling golden hair. In the dream, a dignified and noble voice kept telling him, "Find her. Find her." He could feel his desire for that woman in the dream. It seemed that without that figure, his whole life was incomplete. Thunder didn't reject the dream. On the contrary, he believed that it was a hint from God, asking him to find the other half of his life. Chapter 270. But in the vast sea of people, it was very difficult to find a figure that existed in dreams. So there was a rumor in Ice Frost Base that Lei Ting liked beauties. In fact, Lei Ting had never touched any of the beauties that were sent to him. None of those people were her. He knew. But when he saw Gu Xingyin today, he felt different. He was like a traveler who had been thirsty for countless years and finally found the sweet spring of his life. Lei Ting looked at Gu Xingyin's back, his eyes full of determination. He didn't hide his aggressive eyes. How could Gu Xingyi not see it? She sneered in her heart. She had already confirmed that Lei Ting was her lover with a quick glance. Very good, he liked beauties. There were still many beauties sent to Ice Frost Base to please him. Gu Xingyi's eyes lit up. The most beautiful part of Li Xingyin was her watery peach blossom eyes. At this moment, Gu Xingyin was angry, but she didn't look fierce. Instead, the way she glared at him was a little cute. Mu Yi only felt his heart beat faster when he saw Gu Xingyin like this. He liked Li Xingyin. Otherwise, with his pride, he wouldn't have confessed. But after being rejected, he was ashamed and angry. He couldn't put down his pride, so he kept targeting Gu Xingyin. But Gu Xingyin had shown her absolute strength in front of them. Now, he didn't think there was anything wrong with her temper. Strong people were always different from ordinary people. Thinking of this, Mu Yi took out an unopened bottle of water from his backpack and handed it to Gu Xingyin. He said in his softest voice, "Thank you for your hard work." Gu Xingyin glanced at him in bewilderment. He did not know why this man had suddenly changed his mind. But her mind was full of Lei Ting, so she didn't care too much. She vaguely thanked him and accepted his kindness. Lei Ting looked coldly at Mu Yi, who was fawning over Gu Xingyin. He suddenly asked, "Who is that person?" The man beside him was confused by his question. He followed his gaze and said, "That man is Mu Yi from the capital base, a 7th-level gold power possessor. He's a famous master in the capital base." Lei Ting snorted softly, his voice full of disdain. The person who spoke earlier didn't know what Mu Yi had done to make his boss dislike him so much. However, he still silently lit a row of candles for this brother. "Brother, if you are remembered by our boss, your future will be quite exciting." People from the Ice Frost base happened to be invited to attend the meeting this time, so the two sides just set off at the same time. At first, the people in the Imperial base were quite happy. After all, the title of the #1 Thunderbolt superpower was not for nothing. With him, there was no need to worry about the threat of zombies. However, their faces soon darkened. Lei Ting, who was rumored to be fond of beauties, had actually taken a fancy to the most beautiful flower in their Imperial base. Lei Ting didn't try to hide his behavior at all. The few superpower possessors from the capital base who had witnessed the scene of Gu Xingyin showing her invincible power in the military factory had already put Gu Xingyin in a very high position in their hearts. In this way, no matter how strong Lei Ting was, he didn't deserve Gu Xingyin, who was like a goddess, in their eyes. You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.